It's true, NBA players make millions, but at what cost?
It was one way. Anything you ask me to do on this court, I'm going to do it until I can't do it again. And I paid the price.
We often see the fame, but not the journey to get there.
I was 8 years old, 10 years old, and they're telling me I'm trash.
Philly guy and former NBA star Alvin Williams joins us.
Why do people hate Philly fans so much? Guys, welcome to The Pulse. I say it every week. We're bringing you excitement, entertainment, information, and getting a chance to talk to people to hear their full story, not some sort of soundbite or what have you. We go deeper. Today we've got, well, I don't know, he's not a local guy anymore. He's a local guy always. National, played basketball locally at Villanova, played professionally, and I've known him for a minute. We had teammates at some point. This is Alvin Williams. How are you, sir?
I'm doing well. Thanks for having me, man.
Of course. I appreciate you coming in.
Thank
we
you.
got read history.
Yep.
We were talking about that during the break. So my high school teammate was your college teammate, and you guys are still in touch. John Haynes.
God, that's like my brother, man.
I never knew, with playing with a talent like John or a talent like yourself, how much better it made the rest of us. Like, I was convinced I could actually play, because I spent my entire career shooting wide open shots. Because guys were getting triple teamed when you go out there and play. Is that tough, just jumping into that, coming up in that environment? Because you're a star,
right,
playing in an environment that's not necessarily filled with stars.
Right.
Is that hard, or is that just making you a better player?
It was weird, right? Because growing up with the John Haynes, who was very popular, McDonald's All-American, nationally known, then, Rasheed Wallace, they were the stars. Like, I was just, in the mix with those guys, but they definitely made us better. And just the Philadelphia environment, playing in the Sunny Hill League and the Total Response League, and then all your local neighborhood leagues and the pickups that you used to play against, so many talented players. And I just remember my senior year, you had Mark Jackson that went to Roman, Tyrone Weeks that went to FLC, you had Sheed, you had Katino Mobley. And then, even a couple years before that with Aaron McKee and Jerome Allen. So it was a lot of players coming from this area at that time, and we all played under one roof at the Sunny Hill League. So we had no choice but to get better.
It was weird how Philly all seemed to have each other's back.
Yeah,
that continued as you kept growing up the ranks.
You see guys now, like Aaron was bringing his younger son, to one of my camps and clinics and things like that. And you see those guys grow up. Mark Jackson, likewise. Jason Lawson, another Villanova teammate that we played against, played with. And, all of us are really close. Just those battles. And Gustine Lake, it was a guy by the name of John Arnett. And he would have us on during the week, sweaty and hot all day. And we go to 3 different locations. We go to Gustine Lake, then we go down Temple, then sometimes we go up to GA, and I had the key to the gym. So we always beat each other up. And I think we became closer for that.
You grew up Philly, played at Villanova, so you got a chance to travel, and then played professionally in a couple different cities.
Yep.
And I know there's national audience watching, but we're going Philly for a minute before we get into that. You've experienced it a lot of different places.
Yep.
Is it different going to the different places than what you experienced in Philly, playing in Philly, living in Philly?
Yeah. You have your big cities. You have your Chicagos, your New Yorks, your Jerseys right down the street, and then, your Detroits. You find when you meet people, when you have those guys on your team in similar situations and similar stories are being told. So although Philly get a rap for, some aggression or, that reputation, but when you go to those cities and those different environments, Los Angeles, you hear the same type of stories.
You played 10 years in the pros?
10, yeah.
Okay, and then injuries.
Yeah. Well, I played 8 years and then injuries through the last 2. So 8 strong years of playing, and then the last 2 years trying to get back and trying to rehab, and it never clicked for me.
What's that like? But I'd imagine you have to really love what you're doing to try to get back out there after knee injuries or things like that.
That was one of the hardest things in my life, not being able to play the thing that you would die for. Like, I would have died on the basketball court playing the sport that I love. That's all I knew as far as what brought me happiness outside of my family and my friends. So that was something that was a tough pill to swallow. I look at players today and I look at their attitudes, and they have the love and they have the passion, but the individuals and the understanding of the sport is much different. They have much more information. It's much more of a business that they're aware of, where I'm thinking loyalty, and I'm thinking commitment. I'm thinking promises that, this is what I'm supposed to do. And I look as players, they have a greater understanding of their well-being. They have a greater understanding of their value and their power and impact that they have on the overall league. See certain players that take the stance of, I'm not going to play for whatever reason. They have a deeper understanding and a deeper meaning behind what they do. Whether it's right or wrong or however we take it, I didn't have that. It was one way. Anything you ask me to do on this court, I'm going to do it until I can't do it again, until I can't do it anymore, and then I'm going to still try to do it. And I paid the price. My knee still hurts. I was bought out. I never fulfilled my entire contract. So the things that I thought that I was doing the right way, I probably could have did it or structured it a little differently. And I probably could have still played a little longer and probably been a happier retirement.
Everybody always comments, you're making millions of dollars to play a game.
Mm-hmm.
And you're sitting back, it's almost, without judging them one way or the other, it's almost like there is some kind of appreciation for the folks who understand that they have more control.
I admire them. I'm very close to Kyle Lowry. And Kyle Lowry, Philadelphia guy, Villanova guy, Toronto. It's ironic how our paths, I'm much older than Kyle, but Philadelphia, Villanova, end up in Toronto. So we've had a lot of conversations, and I watch how he take care of his body. I watch how he prepare. I watch how he approaches things mentally. I watch how he does it physically. But, when you're a kid, when you're playing basketball, when we were playing as kids, they would always tell us, have something to fall back on, right? Don't rely just on basketball. Have something to fall back for you educationally, happiness, and all of these things, and just expanding yourself. And you see athletes now, they are doing that within the game. So now when they do retire or when they transition, they still have a passion, which makes that transition much easier. And I think the athletes having that mindset now, it helps them.
You transitioned, and you talk about loyalty. I don't know the inside of it, but it seems like Toronto treated you pretty well.
Yeah.
Right? After the retirement, you came back. You were a coach with Toronto for a while. You're now, calling the games for Toronto.
I got fired from Toronto about 10 times, man. I'm still there. They can't get rid of me. They cut me. They transitioning coaches, front office, and I'm still there. Now I'm with the broadcasting, but that's the beautiful thing, man. I'm very close with Larry Tannenbaum, who's one of the owners there, and the front office, and just always how you carry yourself. How you carry yourself, I was always committed, and it's just an enjoyment, and it's an honor to always be welcomed back there.
Welcome back to The Pulse. Today with former NBA player, current member of the media, Alvin Williams. He's got so many stories, things that we would never hear without talking to people like that. So let's get right back to it. Team 100.
Uh-huh.
So you talk about transitioning,
Yep.
having additional things. You also talk about kind of athlete empowerment and athletes having something else to fall back on or understanding the business. What's Team 100?
It's a management group that's based off of education. So you have a lot of managements or management groups that, they work with the players and help the players with their daily, whether it's booking flights, whether it's just helping them ease the load of their life, everyday schedule while they can perform their whatever sport they're performing. But we come at it from an educational process. We come at with the aspect of really helping everyone in the circle, not just the athlete, the family, because the family dynamic is something that sometimes get lost when a player makes it to the professional ranks. Everyone's impacted. Everyone's impacted. There's a large amount of money coming. There's a lot of notoriety. And there's a lot of information given to you. And one thing that I know where I struggle with was asking a lot of questions. I didn't know what questions to ask. And that I wasn't vulnerable enough to let people know I didn't know. And it wasn't until I when I retired, I started becoming more and more interested in these things. So right from the gate, we try to give information. We try to exercise our network and our resources. We're not the experts, but we just like to try to use our network to help people, whether it's financially, whether it's with management, whether it's legal, whether it's nutrition. And a lot of things we do also, we go out to younger groups, high school athletes, student athletes, college athletes, organizations, and we educate them as well.
The concept of professional athletes as human is something that's lost on a lot of people. A Sixer who shall remain nameless, years ago I did a radio interview with him, and he told me how he signed this huge contract. And it ended up, one of his one of his boys, was asking him to invest in this business, millions of dollars in this business. And he's like, it's ridiculous. I'm not going to invest in this. They were at a club and some guy came after them, like picked a fight with them. He later found out that it was the same friend who sent this guy after him to start a fight.
Wow.
Friend jumped in, breaks the fight up, and was trying to make you feel I'm so loyal, write this check. Does that surprise you? Or is that
no.
Really?
But you know what? The money, man, and coming from a place where you don't have it or you didn't have it, and people feel entitled. And I was so fortunate enough that, you know, my mom and dad was there. You know, my dad used to, you don't owe anyone anything. And I never really had to reach out to anyone for support. I had a home to go to. If I needed someone to talk to, I had my sisters and I had a couple close friends, but I never had the responsibility or I never had the pressure of somebody having to take care of me. Someone having to buy me sneakers or somebody having to give me a little extra pocket change because I didn't have anything. I was always fortunate enough to have a strong family base. And I always never let the money, I never let those situations identify me. And my friends knew that from the beginning. So my friends, my close friends, great guys, they had their own. But there are situations where people befriend you because they want something. That's what Team 100 tries to, you can't block it, but you can give the information and you can share your stories. I have a lot of, like, once again, former athletes and certain current athletes that can share their stories and say, this is what you can look out for. This is how you can handle it.
That story, actually somebody pulled a knife. Like the friend had them pull a knife on his guy trying to get that. That shook me. You know, when I heard that, I went,
it happens, man. It really, people will set you up. People will have information and people that you're close to. Like really, if we're spending a lot of time together and you may hear me on the phone or we may go someplace or you may come to my house or drive my car or something like that, you have a lot of personal information. And if you and I don't see eye to eye for one thing, that's you can share somebody with somebody that got, and that's how it goes. And it happens like that. It's unfortunate. So that's why when you're an athlete, sometimes you got to be in a tight circle. You can't do the things that you like to do. All the things that you used to do with your friends, you can't always do it because, unfortunately, you can't trust the fact that they don't want something from you that you're not willing to give.
My father used to manage radio stations. So when I was a child, the Sixers of that day, so Mo Cheeks and Caldwell Jones, the center back that I used to call Uncle Caldwell, and I was this little dude. Those guys, Andrew Toney, those guys came out and played for the radio station softball team. They would be out there in the community traveling, sitting after games, having a beer or whatever, because you could do it then. Like there was a different view. And I think that the people who will resent athletes who are not as deep in the community as you once were don't understand that it's much more challenging now to do that.
I was fortunate enough, once again, my family was very close. So this is home base for me. This is home base for me. I feel safe. I feel protected. I feel love here. So it was always good. Everybody didn't have that upbringing that I had. So, you know, they move differently. But, yeah, that community, that sense of community is not always there. You'll find it, but it's not like back in the day, like you mentioned, the softball games and, you know, you play against some police officers in a park and things like that. And, you know, the landscape of our city is changed over time.
Young people who are watching this, like that part hasn't changed. They still look at what you've done, what you've accomplished, and want it. You know, and probably even more so. Like there's the basketball side of it, but you've now branched off into business, branched off into TV and what have you. What's your motivational words for young people?
I'm still learning. Never stop. I think, you know, someone's always watching you. And I realize now that having my own children and, you know, having, you know, I've spoke to camps, I spoke to kids, I spoke to, you know, prison systems. You know, I've done a lot of speaking, and, you know, just continue to grow. I think just the growth while you're on this earth is the biggest thing. You know, how can you expand? A lot of people say make yourself better. How do you make yourself better? Whatever that looks like. But I think never limit yourself and continue to grow.
Grew up in it, you played in it. Now you're with a different fan base.
Right.
Even still being a Philly guy. Why do people hate Philly fans so much?
I hate Philly fans. I mean, no offense, but you know, it's first, this is just being Philadelphia. Like beginning of every season, Flyers, Phillies, Eagles, Sixers, they're going to win a championship.
Right.
I'm like, all right, you're going to win the championship.
We're delusional.
Yeah,
we don't want to believe it.
And then as soon as you lose 2 or 3, the world's come to an end. I think people, it's not that they hate Philly fans. I think they're intimidated because it looks like Philly fans, they travel in bunches. If they go on a road, they might start a fight there, or they might get in a fight. I don't know who starts. I don't know what, but I think it's the perception is they're aggressive. But we grew up in that. I tell people all the time, I used to go down and we played. I was 8 years old, 10 years old, and they're telling me I'm trash and people wait outside for you at the games and things like that. So that was just something, but it's the passion behind it. But it's an aggressive passion that I say the Philadelphia fans have.
I told you I was talking to Dawn Staley about. Dawn said it makes Philly players who came up in that different. She said, because she felt like after going through that, there's nothing you can do to me. I'm tough. Yeah. I can handle any situation. Yeah. Do you see that difference?
I do. I think when you grow up in those environments and you get heckled and it's tough love, it's that competitive vibe that we have. Everything is competitive, whether it's racing, whether it's playing football, pole, whether it's stickball, whatever it is, it's competitive. And I think that's the piece that makes the Philadelphia player that much tougher, because no matter if you're playing against an arch enemy or you're playing against your friend, it's a competitive nature there that you'll be out there fighting your best friend like you don't know him, just from a sport. So I think that's one thing that makes us different.
Player to media. Has that changed how some of the players, now you're in the position where you have to critique these same guys. There's the whole brotherhood of having played. Has that been an interesting adjustment, or any of the players have issues with that?
I can't even tell you if the players have issues with it, because I'm so hesitant. I'm the one that's, I think, acting different because I'm in that role. And I'm like, wonder how they look at me now. And I try to be careful of like the things I say, because I understand what the players go. If the player's having a bad game, I know it's just not because all the time that they're just having a bad game. Sometimes it could be something at home. Sometimes they could just have an off game. Someday they can be hurt. Information is not disclosed. So I've always taken that route and that approach. When I played, I never really interacted with the media. It was always us versus them. And I never really watched anything. I never read anything, because I wasn't the type, if someone wrote something negative about me or said something negative about me, I couldn't see them in the locker room and think everything was all cool. I didn't understand that was their job. I'm taking everything personally.
We've seen a lot of, and I'm curious because you've experienced from both sides, but you know, NBA playoffs, you see people heckling Chris Paul and his family. Like, apparently somebody put their hands on his mom. Like, you see people throwing bottles at Kyrie Irving. You see the fans who are seemingly more and more crossing these lines. And Chris Paul finally said, if you're not going to protect my family, then you can't get upset with us when we protect our family.
Right.
As a player and the media, what do you think about that? Because it does seem like people are being, I don't know if emboldened is the word, but you're doing things that you would never do if you had to go face to face with 6'5" plus, professional athlete. But you do it from the stands.
Yeah, you're out there on the court. They want you to engage with the players. So that's that's the promotion, that's the marketing piece, engaging with the players, which is fun. It's just cool. But you get out there and you see people, they're drinking alcohol. They're right on you. They have kids right there. The kids are even shouting like crazy things to adults, and the best players in the world, and they're telling people that you stink, you're garbage, and all this stuff. Some people say a lot of degrading things to the players. And now when you can get physical, or you can throw something at me, and it's publicized that Kyrie Irving may be fined $50,000
for responding.
Right now, I'll do that again. If nothing happened to me, or I might get kicked out of a game or whatever, but I got notoriety. I got 15 seconds of fame. This guy's getting fined $50,000. So they feel like they're doing their jobs as a fan, which is unfortunate. I remember coming back here to Philadelphia when we played the Sixers in the playoffs in 2001. Yeah. And my mom, and I used to be fearful. I used to have to sit certain friends with my mom, or with my dad or my sisters, to make sure that if anything ever happened, then everything would be all right at the end of the day. So, it's one of those things that's unfortunate, but that's the nature. But I won't just sweep it under the rug and say that's what it is and live with it. It's not cool.
Guys, thanks so much for watching The Pulse. Today with former NBA player and collegiate star Alvin Williams. I enjoyed it because there's so many different stories he had to share and so many different things that we don't think about as these guys as humans and not just players or commodities. I enjoyed it. I hope you did as well. And remember, you can hear the full interview on podcasts, any place that podcasts are available. Make sure you're following me on social media at BillAFox29. We'll be back to do it all again, same time next week. And until then, whenever possible, use your voice for good and have a good one.